My name is Frank Schaeffer. My father, Francis Schaeffer, was a famous evangelical evangelist and theologian, and I grew up in a mission, and weirdly in the early 1970s became his nepotistic sidekick as a young 20-something out on the evangelical circuit. What was interesting about Dad's ministry was, however, that he was a man of ideas. He was not really to be confused with folks like Jerry Falwell, who founded the Moral Majority, and others. He was a much deeper thinker than that, and someone he enjoyed reading a lot was the psychologist Erich Fromm, who became well known for his writing on malignant narcissism. A lot of people point to Donald Trump's rise in the evangelical community as a leader pushed by people like Franklin Graham and Jerry Falwell Jr. and other people who, by the way, I knew all these guys back when they were kids, actually, young men, when our fathers knew each other. Billy Graham, the evangelist, used to hang out with my dad, vice versa. I knew Jerry Falwell Sr. In fact, I preached from Falwell's pulpit at Liberty Baptist, his church, when he was just getting his college going that Jerry Falwell Jr. runs. A lot of people are shocked that evangelical leaders like Falwell and Graham, Franklin Graham, have gone for Donald Trump and still support him even today after all the lies and the ineptitude and all the rest of it, based on things like him paying off a porn star and so forth and so on. But there's a far deeper issue that Erich Fromm was dealing with in his books on malignant narcissism. And that is that when you look at the personality of Donald Trump, to follow him or to vote for him or to believe in him is the antithesis of everything that Christianity ever stood for. Narcissism is the opposite of the Christian life. Now, we are all narcissists in our own way, but there's a difference between the ordinary narcissism, say we are born with as a child who only thinks of herself or himself, and the narcissism of a madman that Fromm talks about. You know, I don't usually read things when I do these videos, but I'm going to read from his book here on individual and social narcissism in chapter 4 of his book, The Heart of Man. A particular instance of narcissism which lies on the borderline between sanity and insanity can be found in some men who have reached extraordinary degrees of power. Then he goes on to name the pharaohs and people like them, Hitler, Stalin, etc. This is madness, even though it is an attempt to solve the problem of existence by pretending that one is not human. It is a madness that tends to grow in the lifetime of the afflicted person. What's interesting to me is that Fromm has described not just Donald Trump, but the kind of malignant narcissism that someone like Franklin Graham, or for that matter, Bill Barr, the Attorney General, pushing his Roman Catholic ideas in our culture of theocracy, seeing himself as all important, or Jerry Falwell Jr. taking a picture of himself with his pants unzipped, standing next to a pregnant woman, mimicking her pregnant belly in this insulting photograph that got him in trouble. These men, Trump, Franklin Graham, Bill Barr, and others, on one hand, talk about Christianity. Trump even waves a Bible when he clears a square of people with brutality, gassing them and having them beaten. Franklin Graham talks about Jesus. When you get to Jerry Falwell Jr., he says he's running a Christian college. They all play this game, but at the heart, what you have to understand about the definition of malignant narcissism that Fromm was writing about in 1964, he describes a condition in which an individual is characterized by being grandiloquent, antisocial, and hostile behavior. How do we recognize such a person, he writes? Sensitivity to criticism is one thing. Fear of criticism. Entitlement, self-sacrifice is difficult for such people. Blaming others, not accepting responsibility, distant relationships. This is 1964. He's not writing about Trump or Franklin Graham or Jerry Falwell Jr. or William Barr, but he might as well be. What's interesting to me is that when you look at the scriptures, the Bible, in writing about Jesus, Jesus's character and everything we as Christians are supposed to imitate is the complete opposite of this. Now, that is the truly shocking thing. Amazing that Fromm gives us a better guide to Christianity in his writing on malignant narcissism than the Christian leaders do today in vaunting and lauding and telling people to vote for Donald Trump, who represents a malignant narcissism that has crossed the line of insanity and gotten into a kind of a perversity and an ugliness which the entire gospel of Jesus Christ, the entire witness of biblical Christianity, the entire witness of the historic church at its better moments stands against. So Franklin Graham and William Barr with his Roman Catholic theocracy and Jerry Falwell Jr. have not simply picked a candidate which has fallen by the wayside in terms of sexual morality, of molesting women and bragging about it. They have picked a candidate that, if they would only read Erich Fromm, they would understand that they have picked a character whose malignant narcissism is the exact opposite of everything that Christianity teaches. And so I would just say to my friends who are Christians and still in the evangelical community, I may have left evangelicalism, and you regard me as an apostate and a backslider and all this terminology because I am not a Donald Trump fan. But at least I remember what my father, Francis Schaeffer, taught about what a Christian life looked like. And it has nothing to do primarily with sexual morality. It has to do with the heart. And here's the question I want to leave you with. Does God feed your heart, or does God feed your ego? Think about that. My name is Frank Schaeffer.